After Gaddafi's fall in Libya, Benghazi becomes one of the most dangerous places in the world as local militants start raiding Gaddafi's large arsenal. Most countries have removed their ambassadors from Libya, but the USA still has its embassy and a CIA base nearby in Benghazi, which come under the protection of the GRS. Following these events, GRS member Jack Silva arrives in Benghazi and is picked up by his old friend Tyrone, commander of GRS team. He will serve alongside his old buddy as a GRS mercenary, a unit responsible for the safety of the CIA base and the embassy. On their way, they witness a shooting, and before they know it, they are surrounded by local militants. Ron contacts the base to request assistance, but CIA Chief Bob informs him that his men are not authorized to leave the base. The local militants wants to inspect their car, but Tyrone manages to get them out of trouble by saying that there is a drone in the air seeing all of their faces. If something happens to him, his fellow soldiers will go after their families. Roan confronts the chief for not sending his men. The chief explains that he does not want the GRS to cause any international incidents while the locals sort themselves out. Jack meets the team, surveys the area, and is informed to carry a weapon. Later, he meets with Chief, who informs him that the government wants the GRS there, not him. The next day, Jack is ordered to guard two CIA agents who are going to have a meeting with a representative from an oil company. The agents warn Jack not to talk much, and the female agent will introduce him as her husband so he can sit near them. During the meeting, Tyrone figures out that they are being followed and warns Jack to leave along with the agents. Jack does exactly that and takes the agents to Tyrone, who tries to drive them away. Even though they are being followed by a hostile van, the team manages to escape. 5 weeks later, GRS is informed that Ambassador Chris Stevens is visiting Benghazi and he is going to stay in a compound away from the CIA's secret base. Tyrone takes the team to the compound so they can evaluate the security measures, and two diplomatic security agents show them around. The GRS guys believe that security measures are not tight enough and warn the diplomatic agents about the potential threats. Soon, Stevens arrives in Benghazi and delivers a speech at the CIA base, clarifying that his intentions are good and he wants to assist the people of Libya in taking control of their own fates. The ambassador goes about his schedule for a few days, but things are going to change pretty soon. One night, the consulate is attacked by surprise, and the guards are killed. Some hired local forces scatter away, and a diplomatic agent named Wickland struggles to get the ambassador in a safe room. At the same time, the GRS team is informed of the attack, and they are ready to move. Tyrone tells his crew that they are not obligated to go there and help, but they are the only help the ambassador might have. The Pentagon tries to figure out what's going on while Bob, the CIA's chief in Benghazi, prevents the GRS from engaging. Tyrone insists they need to make a move, but Bob tells him that they are the last line of defense and nobody is going anywhere without his word. In the meantime, the attackers try to get to the ambassador, but the room he is locked in with Wickland and an ID guy named Smith can't be breached. Realizing they can't get the ambassador out, the attackers decide to set the whole building on fire. Wickland gets Stevens and Smith in the bathroom, but dark smoke starts flowing in. Another diplomatic agent desperately asks for help over the radio, a fact that makes Tyrone impatient. He asks Bob to let them go, but the latter is afraid that their base is going to be exposed if the GRS helps the consulate. Jack claims that if the attackers destroy the consulate, this base is going to be next. Tyrone loses his patience and decides to mobilize the team without Bob's permission. On their way, GRS stumbles on an armed group, but they have no idea if these are their local allies or enemies. While they try to communicate with them, they are attacked by another armed group. Roan and his team fight their way to the outpost, taking out several militants. They are surprised by the locals' indifference to the violence. After a long battle, they finally reach the outpost. When they arrive near the compound, GRS soldiers team up with their local allies from the 17 Feb unit, and they divide into smaller groups in order to save the ambassador and hold the attackers back. Eventually, they decide to run to the back gate of the compound. Soon, Jack and Tyrone make it inside the consulate, searching for the ambassador. However, they are discouraged when they see the room where the ambassador was hiding in. The room is on fire, and Jack speculates that nobody would have survived that. In the meantime, the other members of the GRS have a hard time recognizing who their friends are since lots of people walk around carrying arms in the streets. Back in the consulate, the ID guy, Smith, is found dead. That fact disturbs the diplomatic agents as they can't be certain if the ambassador has turned into dust or managed to escape. Although the attackers have fallen behind, a translator called Amal warns the GRS that the enemies are regrouping. They are probably preparing for another attack. Indeed, another wave of attackers joins the scene and starts shooting everyone. The GRS team manages to hold them back until they can get into their vehicles and drive away. At some point, they are stopped by a group of armed people who pretend they intend to help them. However, none of them speaks English, and communication is a mess between the two parties. Eventually, the armed locals start shooting at the team, but the GRS members are lucky enough to have bulletproof vehicles. They step on the gas, and they drive away while another gunfight breaks out. The vehicles make it back to the CIA's secret base, even though they suspect that they have been followed by the attackers. Bob tells Tyrone that they need to evacuate the base and make a run for the airport, but the latter suggests they need to ask any African government for help. Bob doesn't want the base to be exposed, so he insists on his own proposal, but Tyrone tells him that he is not in charge anymore because he has no idea how to handle a battle. It would be impossible for them to reach the airport because everybody is hunting down the Americans right now. Meanwhile, another American consulate in Tripoli has heard the news of the attack, and their GRS chief decides to take action. Even though he gets as many people as he can, Tripoli is over 600 miles away, and they are going to need some time to reach Benghazi. Back in Benghazi, the GRS team tries to turn the CIA base into a fortress until help from Tripoli arrives. Nerves are tense as they expect to be hit by a large number of attackers. Despite their high morale, the GRS lose their local allies from 17 February, who decide to run away before the battle begins. Very soon, the base is surrounded by locals, but Tyrone warns his men to stand down until they see those men grab their guns. The locals walk even closer as Bob remarks over the radio that they are being surrounded in all directions. The fight begins, but the GRS team is able to do its job, and they eliminate most of the attackers, forcing the rest of them to retreat. In the meantime, the team from Tripoli is trying to get a plane in order to fly to Benghazi, but they are stalled by a Libyan military unit. Back in Benghazi, a new wave of attackers is concentrating outside the CIA base. Knowing that nobody might survive this night, Jack makes a run for his computer and sends a video he had previously recorded to his family. Another battle breaks out, but the GRS does a good job once more, repelling the attackers. However, Tyrone keeps his enthusiasm back as he believes that the attackers are not done yet. A few moments later, the team receives good and bad news. The good news is that the team from Tripoli is coming by plane, and the bad news is that the ambassador has been found dead. A few hours later, the Tripoli GRS team comes in and intends to take some people to the airport. They need to make the trip twice as there is not enough room for everyone. However, their plans are ruined when another attack is launched against them. Several moderate attacks injure and kill many members of the GRS and the CIA. After this last wave is repelled, the guys know that they are going to die if they don't get any help. A few armed vehicles approach the base, and everybody believes this is the end for them, but they are surprised to see that this is a Libyan military unit that has come to help them out. The Americans are loaded on a couple of trucks, and they are taken to the airport. The first flight leaves with some of the Americans, while some others have to wait for the next plane. The remaining members of the GRS team discuss how everyone will get a medal except them, but Jack proclaims that getting back to their families is good enough. Then Jack calls his wife to tell her how much he loves her and announces that he is going back home. However, Tyrone was not as lucky as him, and he was killed during the battle. As the film ends, the titles inform us that Libya was turned into a stronghold for terrorists. As for the GRS team members, they all received medals in a private ceremony. All of them decided to switch professions and live happy lives with their families.